A lot. They're gonna love you a lot.
Success! Pudding!
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the man we've all been waiting for. And waiting for. That man is Marcus the Motivator.
G'day guys, it's Marcus the Motivator here. Today we are here with singer Alana Joanne. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Very good. Now, today we just want to get to know a bit more about who you are, your story, and your motivation, what your inspiration's been behind your music career so far. So let's go back to the start. Where did your passion come for music to start with? Where did it all start?
I would say singing is where music sort of started for me.
Yep.
From about the age of 11 years old, I think, was when I first discovered that I really enjoyed the act of singing. I was in a little choir to begin with in school, and then I just sort of branched out on my own in school and pursued it more and more.
Yep.
I was in bands all throughout high school, like constantly putting on shows, like every 2 weeks.
Yep.
And sort of that's, Evanescence was my first band love.
Yep.
I used to blast them every day.
Yeah.
In my room after school, my poor mum. But and then that just sort of went from there, really.
So it started obviously early as a kid, and you do singing and music and bands and stuff, and as you just said, Evanescence, a very well-known band back in the late 90s, early 2000s. What was it about what was it about their music that you liked so much?
Two things. Amy Lee's voice is amazing.
Yep.
And the second one would just be, I guess, the songwriting that went into the sound, like the way the music sounded.
Yep.
The song My Immortal really helped me through the death of my best friend when I was 11. So I guess having a very personal connection to a song and having a song kind of put words to a feeling that I couldn't really helped me. And I always wanted to be able to do that for other people, you know, because that happened for me and it saved me, and it got me through a really dark time. And as more things happened in my life, other songs and other musicians kept doing the same thing for me. And that was, I guess, a real motivator for me. Like, I wanted to be able to do that for other people. So
growing up, you obviously had a lot of influences for your music. When you kind of got more into your adult, late teens, early 20s, did you have an idea of where you wanted to take your music and what you wanted to do with it?
I always knew I wanted to sing, but because I loved so many different genres of music, it was really hard for me to pinpoint what exactly it was I wanted to do.
Yep.
And I've really only discovered that probably in the last 12 months of the music that I've been doing. I released an EP last year, which I'm proud of.
Yep.
But the sound and style of those songs are not what I'm going for now. So it's really interesting that when you actually start making your own music, your entire journey just continuously changes. Well, that's how it's been for me so far anyway.
So have you found those change? So talk about what were the different genres that you were exploring?
So when I first was writing, I guess, I wasn't writing for a specific genre. I was just sort of mainly writing about certain topics that I felt really strongly about, whether it was grief or anxiety or society and all the issues that we have and how we're not really doing anything about it.
Yep.
The first song that I ever started recording of my own is called How Do We Know, and that was just written basically about from the mindset of someone who has a good life and someone who doesn't. So it's sort of two mindsets in the song, and the chorus is says, how do we know? So it's basically when we realize and we understand there are issues in the world, how do we know what to do next?
Yep.
Because we don't really know that. No one tells us that. So that was originally sort of the first producer I worked with it was more of a like poppy kind of sound.
Yep.
But then I changed producers and we actually did it as a rock song,
Yep.
and it sounded a lot better. And I love the way that it turned out. So 4 songs on my EP, that was the only song that was rock, and the other 3 were more acoustic, because I was really in love with the sound of an acoustic guitar at the time, and that's what really expressed what I was feeling.
Yep.
And kind of going through. So it's like, what you're going through in your private life definitely depicts how your music sounds or the way you write at the time, I think.
So let's explore a bit more about, because obviously you've got some pretty personal experiences that go into your songs. So that first song you were talking about, what was it again?
How Do We Know?
How Do We Know? So what was, I'm guessing there was a lot of personal motivation behind that.
Yeah.
How are you able as a musician, how are you able, you feel, to like express like your passion, your inspiration when you're putting, well, either words down or you're putting your voice to a song? Like what comes out, what do you think about when you're writing those kinds of songs?
I guess when I write, my music isn't just for me. If I want to make music for myself, then that's a hobby. That's not a career. Because when you are actually a musician who is making music for people, it has to be about the people as well, not just myself. And I know that I'm not the only person that feels frustrated sometimes. When you walk down the street in the middle of the city of Melbourne and there's homeless people everywhere, and I don't know about you, but I get sad about that. But I'm frustrated because I want to help them, but how can I? Because I know turning around and giving them $5 isn't really helping them. And I personally think that as a society, as not just in Australia but anywhere in the world, that we could just, everyday people actually can do more to help, whether it's educating ourselves a little bit more, on these situations, and just thinking a little bit more about it too. And I guess, it's about, when it comes to writing these songs, not just about the way I feel, but I guess talking with other people, having conversations with them, finding out their thoughts on these topics, so that when I'm writing from my point of view, I can write from their point of view as well. One of the other songs on the EP is called Invisible. And that song was actually the last song we recorded in the studio because it was the most difficult for me to sing. I went to Turkey in 2017 and like walking through the middle of Istanbul, and there were homeless Syrian refugee children just sleeping on park benches everywhere. And it was like a whole nother level of homeless as opposed to what we see around here. And I felt very saddened, for these children, because it's a completely different language. They can't drink water out of a tap in that country. Even in your own home, you have to have bottled water all of the time. They don't have any family, they have nothing, and they've come from a really difficult situation. So I guess, when I wrote that song, I didn't write about my own feelings of being frustrated. The song was actually written from the place of being that refugee, being that child, that's, and how they may or may not feel. And I have a friend who is in this country who is a refugee, and I spoke with him about, what he's experiencing. His mother is in Turkey, he is here, and how that feels. So then I could put that into my music, because I don't want it to just be about how I feel. It has to be about how everyone else feels, or not just everyone, but I guess like a certain group of people might feel.
How does it make you feel when you've had that kind of experience that you can actually put that in music? Like, how did that make you feel that when you were in Turkey, in Istanbul, you were seeing all this? Like, how does that make you feel personally?
Personally, very upset, because, as a country, we are very young. And until we go to other countries, until we really see what's actually happening with our own eyes, it can't really affect us. It can't motivate us to really And that may not be true with every person, but I feel like, you know, and I don't want to sound like I'm being a political person at all, because it's not about that. It's just about human being to human being. I feel as though I already knew that that things happen in the world, you know, we all know that.
Yep.
But it's like when you see it in front of your eyes and you can't do a thing to change it, and you're watching hundreds of people walk past these children and say and do nothing and without a care in the world, you know what's going to happen to those kids.
Yes.
That is the saddest part,
Yeah.
because I get to go home and sleep in my bed and have a hot dinner and a hot shower and be around people that love me, and they don't. And that is a big wake-up call as a person individually, to just be grateful for what you have, and to not, you know, when life is tough and woe is me, like to just take a second and think, okay, but I remember when I saw this, and I remember that situation for those children, so I can't really I'm not that much of a victim here.
Did it put a lot of things into perspective and reality for you?
Yeah, definitely. When I listen back to that song, which isn't often because it's still very emotional for me, I'm proud of it, because I had a vision in my mind of how I wanted it to sound, and then I paid some session musicians to come on. Like, I really wanted guitar and the cello because they're my two favorite instruments, and so just had acoustic guitar. And then I had a Turkish friend who is here in Melbourne who's a very talented musician, and I said, hey, can you come into the studio and do a session with the cello? And he was like, no worries. And I never realized until that day, I wasn't actually there, but until like later that day when my producer sent me what they worked on, I didn't actually realize that there was a difference between, and it's maybe just my ignorance, but like a westernized sounding cello, which is like classical music, and the Turkish sound of a cello. It's the same instrument, it's just the way you play it is different. And he played this very Turkish sound of cello in the song, in the intro, and it's like blew me away when I heard it, and I got tears in my eyes, because like, wow, it's so true to the roots of where that song was written and where it came from, because I wrote the song while I was in Turkey.
Yep.
So it just, it takes you on a journey, but I'm proud of it, but it's not what I'm doing now with my music. So yeah, it's just interesting that when I started out, I was very much, and I still am, about, you know, all the issues and always writing with meaning and having songs that are important. But I also, you know, I don't have anything against like pop R&B music either, which is sort of what I'm focusing on at the moment. You know, but I love rock music, so it's kind of hard for me as a musician to pick a genre. I feel like we shouldn't have to do that.
So you as a musician, things have pretty much evolved over your time. That's probably the best way to describe it. So in your journey so far, talk about like where it started when you're in high school as a teenager. So what did you start to, so what were you singing back then? What music were you doing then? And talk about like the evolution as to where you are now.
Okay. So I got to grow up in the 90s. So I was born in 1990. So I got to experience the full decade of the 90s.
Yep.
So whether it was 90s rock, like pop music, hip hop, rap, like all different kinds of genres of music. So I had a lot of different influences.
Yep.
My parents were really young as well. They were teenagers when they had me. So, you know, like my mum used to drive around in the car listening to NoFX, Nirvana and Blink-182.
Yep.
And then my dad, you know, always loved like the Aussie hip hop stuff. And, you know, when the Hilltop Hoods became popular, that was sort of an influence too. But I guess when I found Evanescence, that was like my one thing that I would just listen to every day. And so by the time high school started, I guess, I was just always wanting to do like rock music, really, which is what I love, but it's not the only thing that I love. So I guess trying to kind of find the artist, the individual artists that I feel like I most relate to, like Lady Gaga is a big influence for me, not just musically, but as an individual person. In fact, sometimes I think she influences me more as an individual than she does musically. Vocally, definitely, but you know, sometimes some of her music's been too pop for me. So like, I feel like as she's progressed through her career, like her music is more to my taste. But yeah, you know, Amy Lee, the lead singer of Evanescence, like she's someone that I really really look up to, always have. And then there's another artist called Tuvlo, who I'm not sure if you've heard of her, but her music's very electronic sort of sounding, but I just love her vibes. You know, I love the way her music makes me feel. I love her lyrical style. So I guess it's, as a musician, my thing is to just kind of merge all of the artists that I'm really influenced by and become my own authentic artist, really.
So you've got a lot of influences, and I think one of the things you said is you've done a fair bit of rock. You've done a bit of rock music.
Yeah.
Was that more back when you were working with bands and singing stuff, or was more of that come up later?
Most
recently?
of my rock time was like when I was younger. It wasn't always original stuff, just because I was young and I wasn't really doing original stuff. But a lot of my time of like performing live, most of my live performances have always been rock music. So it's really interesting now because I'm kind of like stepping away from that, not completely, but just kind of like merging, I guess, other styles into that. Because it's really hard to have a band who is as motivated as you have the same goals as you, who are reliable and always show up. So I kind of decided that I wanted to be a solo artist, and because I would only have to focus on me and worry about me. So I figured that session musicians are out there, so if I need musicians for shows, I can just like pay them to perform, which I'm happy to do. So yeah.
How did it feel for you going from being in a band to going out on your own by yourself as a solo? Did it mean that you could actually then explore more of what you wanted to do?
Absolutely. I think I never actually envisioned myself with, like, when I envisioned a career, I always envisioned it as a solo career. It's just that I was just so used to always performing with other people, and I had this mindset that like music was only good if it was real instruments, which now I'm discovering that no, that's not the case. Like, music can still be really good music even if it's not coming from an actual instrument. So it's been an interesting journey, especially in the last 12 months, because I released my EP in March last year. You know, to go from the mindset that I had then to the mindset that I have now, because I've been on such a massive journey in just 12 months with my music. My single that I released in November was completely different to my EP. It was a piano ballad with like a guitar solo in it, and that song, Sweet Georgia, I wrote for a friend who was going through really bad mental health and was hospitalized a number of times. You know, I was leaving my job. She was one of my casuals, and I knew that she had been unwell the week before, and my final day was a shift with her. So I was the manager. I texted her and I said, how are you? Like, just want to touch base, see if you're okay. If you can't work Saturday, like, let me know, and I'm happy to get someone else to work for you. Just letting her know that I was there for her, and that she doesn't need to feel pressured like she has to come into work. Half an hour later, her mum called me on my work phone to tell me that Georgia had tried to kill herself the night before. So when I heard that, I was quite upset. But obviously I was still aware that there was a situation going on. For me though, that was like a real eye-opener again, like another situation where I could have just called her, texted her, Facebook messaged her or whatever, but I felt like as a musician that it was my responsibility to do something more. So I wrote her a song, and I wrote the song for her, and she loves the song. She says that it saved her life, you know, and that hearing that is better than any award I could ever win or anything, you know, because the song did its job. You know, that was what I set out to do. That's a huge reason why I want to make music. You know, to create more awareness and talk about mental health, but not necessarily in such a sad way, you know, because it doesn't have to be a really sad, scary situation, especially for young people. You know, I'm meeting and I'm working with so many young women, and I can't speak for young men. I don't really work with a lot of men, but I am sure that it's the same. But so many young women suffer from social anxiety alone, let alone depression or anything else. And it's really strange because when I was growing up, that wasn't such a massive thing for my generation. I don't know if it's because technology and social media are so much more now, or if it's because there's more awareness now, but it's crazy to think that more people than less people, young people, have issues mentally. And that's a very serious thing, I believe. And I think that if I can use the universal love of music to bring people together and love each other and have a good time together, and if I can speak for someone who can't find the right words to speak for themselves, then I'll do that. And that's the reason why I'm here and why I want to do music.
So the one thing you said before is, I think you said you were working with someone with your songwriting.
Yes.
What's it like working with someone who has experience in the industry, and you're able to bounce ideas and lyrics and certain things? What's that experience? What's having someone like that for you, just able to teach you and maybe potentially guide you? What's that like?
It's great, actually. I've worked with good people, I feel, from the beginning of when I started creating my own music. Michelle Crow was the first producer that I worked with on my EP and my single, and I loved working with Michelle. He's been a great mentor for me. He's taught me so much about music and the industry, but I've decided that I'm now sort of like going out on my own into the big wide world and working with other producers and like getting out of my comfort zone. I don't ever want to feel comfortable in what I'm doing. Like, I feel as though I have no room to grow if I'm comfortable with what I'm doing. So if it feels uncomfortable to me, that's actually a very good thing. So I guess what motivated me to be willing to go to someone who is far more experienced than me was I met her at that seminar that I did. And I sent her the lyrics for Sweet Georgia, and she, for nothing, she just had a look at it, gave me some feedback, and then I changed a few lines, and I really took in what she said. That was the most important thing, is actually taking on board the points that she's making. So then when I'm writing on my own, I'm actually applying the things that I'm learning. And when I sent back the lyrics to her, I figured, maybe she's probably got more feedback for me, and it's probably not really that good. I guess it's normal as an artist to kind of doubt yourself constantly. And she actually said that she was extremely impressed with what the changes that I'd made, and that it was A-grade stuff. And she said that she never normally says that, but and I could tell that she's a very genuine person. So, she was really happy with that, and that was great because that motivated me to want to continue to do that. And I think to myself, I know songs that are released by the big labels are not written by one person. Depends on the artist. If you're Ed Sheeran or if you're Sia or Lady Gaga, you probably only have yourself and maybe one or two other songwriters. But Ed Sheeran's also released songs where there's 6 songwriters on it. And I understand that being a songwriter and being an artist are two very different things. And so I want to really not just improve myself as an artist, but as a songwriter. And I would love to write for other people one day too. So I guess they go hand in hand for me. So I understood very recently that, if I want a song to be the best that it can be, I have to be willing to show it to other people, be willing to accept the feedback, be willing to make changes and not close myself off from that and try and do everything on my own. Because I'm not going to get very far if I try to do everything by myself. So it's very exciting to have someone to, I guess, guide me, mentor me, share their experience and their knowledge with me, that I can learn from. And I'm really looking forward to seeing where I am in another 12 months' time, because I achieved so much in the last 12 months, but now I'm on my next journey of my music career. So 2019 is going to be very different to 2018, but in a good way.
So what's coming up for 2019? What's going to be happening going forward for the next 12 months?
Yeah, so the aim is to have 3 singles this year. All, focusing around important things, or important experiences, but I guess different topics each time. And they're all their own sort of unique kind of sound. I really want to work on my songwriting skills. I'm really aiming to work on my vocal production, and so that a lot of these things that I'm learning now can be natural for me in the next, like, in 12 months time.
Yep.
I'm probably, hopefully, going to be doing a show later on in the year, but I'm planning this really big production, so it takes a lot of time, money, and effort and rehearsals. So I can't guarantee that it will be this year, but it is in the works. And one other thing is that someone that I know passed away in November last year. She committed suicide, and I've spoken with a lot of other musician friends and to see if they're on board, but I want to put on like a kind of like a benefit concert to kind of raise money for a specific section of the mental health. In pick a hospital, pick a mental health ward. I know that a lot of these people are suffering. They're going to hospital, they're getting let out because they don't have the staff, they don't have the funds to help these people and give them the real proper mental care that they need. And so I feel like I want to just help in some way, and I feel that as artists we can do that. We all, I'm sure at some point we've all suffered in some way in our lives, and I just so the plan is to get a group of us together and put on a show and sell tickets and use the money from the ticket sales to donate to a mental health ward.
Well, it sounds like you've got a pretty exciting 12 months ahead. What's the best way that people can get in touch with you?
Alana Joanne Music on Facebook,
Yep.
or just Alana Joanne on Instagram. Instagram's probably best because I use that the most.
Well, Alana Joanne, it has been wonderful to hear your story.